My love, there is something I have carried in silence for years, a secret so close to my heart that even on the loneliest nights I could barely find the courage to face it myself. It wasn't because I wanted to hide it from you. It was because some truths are too fragile to be spoken before the right moment arrives. They live quietly inside us, growing heavier with every passing season, waiting for the person who was always meant to hear them. For years I smiled when I was supposed to smile, stayed strong when life demanded strength, and kept moving forward even when my heart was carrying words it desperately wanted to say. Words meant for you, and tonight, for the first time, I want to open that hidden door. I want to tell you about the secret I've protected through every heartbreak, every goodbye, every lonely chapter of my life, because the truth is, this secret has always been about you. So stay with me for a little while, my love, and let me tell you the story I've been carrying all these years. My love, there is something I have carried for years, something so deeply woven into the fabric of my heart that sometimes I forgot where the secret ended and where I began. It has lived with me through quiet mornings, sleepless nights, crowded rooms, and empty roads. It followed me through every chapter of my life, never asking for attention, never demanding to be spoken aloud, only waiting patiently inside me. I think that is what secrets do when they are born from love. They do not shout, they do not force their way into the world. They sit quietly beneath every smile, beneath every goodbye, beneath every moment when a person looks calm on the outside while carrying an entire universe inside. For a long time, I believed I would take this secret with me forever, not because I wanted to hide it from you, not because I was ashamed of it, but because some feelings become so sacred that speaking them out loud feels almost impossible. You protect them, you guard them, you keep them close because they are the only proof you have that something beautiful existed inside your heart. Even during the years when life felt cold, there were nights when I sat alone, listening to the silence around me, and your presence would somehow find its way into my thoughts. It was strange because sometimes you were not even part of my life yet. Sometimes you existed only as a dream, a possibility, a distant hope that my heart refused to abandon. I wondered who you were. I wondered if you were looking at the same moon. I wondered if you carried your own hidden wounds. I wondered if you had ever cried without letting anyone see. I wondered if you had ever felt lonely in a room full of people. I wondered if somewhere in this enormous world there was another heart learning the same lessons mine was learning. The years passed. Life happened, people came and went, some stayed long enough to leave memories behind, others disappeared almost as quickly as they arrived, but through all of it, the secret remained. The secret was that no matter how difficult life became, a part of me never stopped believing in you. That sounds impossible, doesn't it? Believing in someone you haven't met, missing someone whose voice you have never heard, loving someone whose face exists only in imagination. Yet that is exactly what happened. There were moments when everything around me seemed uncertain, plans failed, expectations broke apart, dreams changed shape, the future became impossible to predict, but somehow the idea of you survived every storm. It survived disappointment. It survived heartbreak. It survived all the times I questioned whether love was real, because deep inside, I always felt there was a reason my heart refused to close completely, a reason it kept leaving the door unlocked. A reason it continued making room for someone who had not arrived. I carried that belief quietly, no grand speeches, no dramatic promises, just a simple faith hidden beneath ordinary days while the world saw me moving forward, handling responsibilities, facing challenges, and pretending to have everything figured out. There was another story unfolding beneath the surface, the story of a man carrying a secret, the story of a heart saving a place for someone it had not met, the story of hope refusing to die. Sometimes people think strength means becoming hard. They think surviving pain means building walls so thick that nothing can get through. I used to believe that too. After enough disappointments, it feels safer to stop expecting anything good. It feels easier to convince yourself that love belongs to other people, but every time I tried to become that person, something inside me resisted. Something whispered that becoming numb was not the same as becoming strong. Something reminded me that the heart was never meant to be a prison, so I kept going, not perfectly, not bravely every day, not without fear. There were days when loneliness sat beside me like an old companion, days when silence felt heavier than words. Days when I questioned whether waiting for something beautiful was foolish, yet even then, the secret stayed alive. It stayed alive because every hardship taught me something, every goodbye taught me something, every disappointment revealed something. Piece by piece, life was preparing me to recognize you, preparing me to appreciate you, preparing me to love you in a way I could never have loved before. Looking back now, I realize that some journeys are invisible. No one applauds them. No one notices them. No one understands how much effort it takes to keep believing when circumstances encourage you to stop. But those journeys matter. They shape us. They refine us. They teach us patience. And patience is a strange kind of love. It means continuing to care even when there is no guarantee. It means protecting hope during seasons that seem determined to destroy it. It means choosing faith over fear one day at a time. That was my secret. While the world measured success and achievements, possessions and accomplishments, I was quietly measuring something else. My ability to remain open, my ability to remain kind, my ability to keep believing that somewhere ahead of me there was a person worth waiting for. You became the silent companion to countless moments of my life, when I watched sunsets alone, when I drove through unfamiliar places, when I stood beneath city lights late at night, when I walked through difficult seasons that seemed endless. I would think about you, not in a desperate way, not in a way that made me stop living, but in a way that reminded me there was still beauty ahead, there was still a chapter unwritten, there was still a reason to keep my heart alive. Because the truth is, my love, some people spend years searching for another person. I spent years preparing for another person, preparing emotionally, preparing mentally, preparing spiritually, learning how to listen, learning how to understand, learning how to stay when things become difficult, learning how to love without trying to control, learning how to give without keeping score, learning how to value presence more than perfection. Those lessons were expensive. Life charged me for every one of them. Some lessons arrived through failure, some arrived through loss, some arrived through moments I would never choose to repeat, yet each one left something valuable behind: wisdom, compassion, patience, gratitude, the ability to see beyond appearances, the ability to recognize what truly matters. And with every lesson, the secret grew stronger, because every hardship convinced me that if love eventually arrived, I wanted to be ready for it. Not perfect, just ready to appreciate what many people overlook, ready to cherish ordinary moments, ready to understand that real love is often found in simple things: a conversation after a long day, a hand reaching for yours, a shared silence that feels peaceful instead of awkward, a glance across a room, a laugh that arrives unexpectedly, a promise kept, a presence that remains. Those things became precious to me long before I ever knew your name, and perhaps that is why The Secret survived so many years. It was never built on fantasy. It was built on faith. Faith that somewhere in this complicated world there existed someone whose heart would understand mine, someone who had also been shaped by time, someone who had known disappointment, someone who had learned resilience, someone who understood that love is not about finding perfection, it is about finding truth. And every year that passed only deepened that belief. Every challenge strengthened it. Every lonely season refined it. Every quiet night protected it. The secret became part of my identity, a hidden flame refusing to go out, a promise whispered between my heart and the future, a reminder that some things are worth waiting for, even when waiting feels endless, because deep inside, I always knew that if our paths ever crossed, I would have a story to tell you, not a story about perfection, not a story about certainty, but a story about endurance, a story about hope, a story about carrying something precious through years of uncertainty without allowing the world to take it away. My love, if I am honest with you, the reason I stayed silent for so long was never because I didn't trust you. It was because I didn't trust myself with the weight of the truth. Some truths change everything the moment they are spoken. They leave the safety of the heart and enter the real world, where they can be accepted, misunderstood, cherished, or rejected. And for years, I wasn't sure I was strong enough to face any of those possibilities, so I carried the truth quietly. I carried it through seasons that changed me. I carried it through nights that tested me. I carried it through moments when speaking would have been easier than remaining silent, because silence felt safer. As long as the truth stayed inside me, it belonged only to me. It couldn't be broken. It couldn't be questioned. It couldn't be turned into something less than what it meant. There is a strange comfort in keeping certain feelings hidden. You get to imagine they are safe. You get to believe they will always remain beautiful. You never have to risk watching them fall apart. And maybe that was my fear, not losing the truth itself, but losing the beautiful dream attached to it. You see, my love, Before I met you, or before life brought us close enough for me to understand what you meant to me, I had already experienced enough disappointment to know how fragile hope can be. I had trusted the wrong people. I had believed promises that were never meant to be kept. I had opened my heart only to discover that not everyone values what they are given. Those experiences leave marks, not visible marks, not scars anyone can point to, but marks that quietly influence every decision afterward. They teach caution, they teach hesitation, they teach the heart to stop running and start walking. And while those lessons protect us, they also create fear, fear of vulnerability, fear of exposure, fear of standing in front of someone and saying, "This is what I truly feel." Because once the truth is spoken, there is no taking it back. The moment it leaves your lips, it belongs to the world. For years, I wondered what would happen if you knew. What would happen if I told you about all the moments connected to you, the moments you never witnessed, the moments that existed entirely inside my heart? Would you understand them? Would they make sense to you? Would you see their value? Or would they sound foolish? There were nights when I rehearsed conversations that never happened. I imagined sitting across from you and finally saying everything I had hidden, every thought, every fear, every memory, every silent prayer, every reason my heart kept finding its way back to you. But every time I imagined reaching the most important part, fear appeared, not loud fear, not dramatic fear, just a quiet voice asking questions. What if she doesn't feel the same? What if she sees you differently afterward? What if your honesty creates distance instead of closeness? What if your truth becomes a burden? Those questions followed me for years, and perhaps the hardest part was that none of them had answers. The future remained silent, the uncertainty remained, the risk remained, so I convinced myself that waiting was the wiser choice. I told myself there would be a better moment, a better opportunity, a better version of myself, a better time to speak. But time has a way of revealing things. It teaches lessons we resist learning, and eventually I realized that fear has a habit of disguising itself as patience. Sometimes we tell ourselves we are waiting for the right moment when we are actually hiding from the possibility of disappointment. Sometimes we call it caution when it is really fear. Sometimes we call it wisdom when it is really self-protection. That realization forced me to look inward. It forced me to ask difficult questions. Was I protecting the truth, or was I protecting myself from the consequences of the truth? The answer wasn't easy, because the reality is that I was doing both. I wanted to protect what I felt. I wanted to protect the dream. I wanted to protect the hope, but I also wanted to protect my heart. And after years of carrying pain, protecting your heart can become second nature. You stop taking risks. You stop stepping into uncertainty. You stop believing that courage is worth the cost. Yet something about you kept challenging that mindset. Something about your existence made fear feel smaller, not because you removed my fears, but because you gave me a reason greater than them. For the first time in a long time, honesty felt more important than safety. Truth felt more important than comfort. Conscience felt more important than control. And that terrified me. Because real love often begins where control ends. You cannot control another person's feelings. You cannot control outcomes. You cannot guarantee that your heart will be protected. All you can do is offer sincerity and hope it is received with care. That level of vulnerability can be frightening, especially for someone who has spent years learning how to survive disappointment, especially for someone who has become accustomed to carrying things alone. I spent so much time being independent that I forgot what it felt like to lean on someone emotionally. I became skilled at hiding struggles, skilled at carrying burdens quietly, skilled at pretending everything was fine. The truth threatened all of that, because the truth required openness, it required trust, it required me to admit that I needed something beyond my own strength, that I cared, that I hoped, that I dreamed, that I feared losing something I had not even fully gained. Those admissions felt dangerous, not because they made me weak, but because they made me human. And being human means accepting uncertainty, accepting that some outcomes remain beyond our control, accepting that love itself is a risk, a beautiful risk, a necessary risk, a risk worth taking. Still, for years I struggled with that reality. I tried to reason my way around it. I tried to convince myself that silence was enough, that carrying the truth privately was sufficient, that some feelings were better left unspoken. But feelings do not disappear simply because we refuse to acknowledge them. They remain, they grow, they evolve, and eventually they become impossible to ignore. Every meaningful interaction with you made the truth stronger. Every memory made it heavier. Every moment of connection added another layer. Until one day I realized that the weight of silence had become greater than the weight of honesty. The secret I carried no longer felt protective, it felt lonely, because some truths are not meant to remain hidden forever. Some truths are meant to be shared, not because sharing guarantees happiness, but because honesty creates freedom. Freedom from pretending, freedom from hiding, freedom from constantly wondering what might have happened. And perhaps that was the deepest fear of all: not rejection, not heartbreak, not disappointment, regret. The possibility of reaching the end of a chapter and realizing I never found the courage to tell you what was real. The possibility of looking back and seeing opportunities lost to fear. The possibility of allowing silence to write a story that honesty could have transformed. That thought stayed with me. It followed me through ordinary days. It appeared during quiet moments. It whispered reminders whenever I tried to convince myself that silence was still the safer path, because eventually I understood something important. Fear does not disappear before courage arrives. Courage arrives while fear is still present. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more, and you mattered more. The truth mattered more. The possibility of genuine connection mattered more. The chance to stand before you honestly mattered more. So little by little, I began letting go of the walls I had spent years building, the walls made from caution, the walls made from disappointment, the walls made from old wounds and old stories, not all at once, not dramatically, just one piece at a time. One honest thought, one vulnerable moment, one quiet act of trust, one step closer to the truth I had carried for so many years, one step closer to allowing my heart to be fully seen, one step closer to believing that what I felt deserved a voice.